Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Just have a touch, please. All quiet, please. Thank you. Go ahead and have your notes there. We're going to continue on looking at the Constitution and how the Constitution came in. And, oh, by the way, did you guys adopt the Constitution? You did?
Yeah.
You did? Was it unanimous? Did it need to be unanimous?
No.
It did need to be unanimous. 9 out of 13, yeah. And in fact, as I recall, there were 13 out of 13 in the Constitutional Convention. But, you ready? Write this down. That was just a proposal. That was just a proposal. If you want to change, like, the national law for the country, you got to go through 2 steps. Propose and ratify. Do you know how to spell ratify? Ratify, okay? Propose, ratify. Our original, Simone, what was the name of our original document for the United States of America government? Simone. What was the name of our original, what was the Constitution called before we had a Constitution? I'll give you the first, I'll give you the second letter of the 3 words. Of. It's such a hint. I'll give you the first one. Articles of. Very good. Articles of Confederation. That was the original governing document for the country. Okay? And they remember you guys got together, they got together way back when to amend it. Did they amend it? No, they're like, we make so many changes, like, throw it aside. Here's the new Constitution. Got that? Today we're going to be looking at how the ratification of that Constitution is going to be handled. And then we'll get into some other things and so forth. I see you guys twice next week. I see you twice the following week. After that, I see you once. Okay? So we're going to go through all the remaining parts. Reminder, make sure you want to get in, if you want to go for those 8 points. That's 4 points for each essay as far as like the retake on the essays. I've seen some of you guys have printed it out. Some of you guys have submitted it to Google Classroom. Either way. Okay, questions on that? If you can get that done today, that'd be great. Yeah. Okay. All right. Other questions? Okay, let's get to it. Okay. So the United States Constitution, was that a good thing? Do you guys feel good about that, or did you feel like Mr. Hansen just sort of pressured you or something? Did you? I mean, you guys actually came up with a lot of the arguments kind of for and against. I mean, it was weird, but it's not weird because you guys are like do anything different than in the years in the past. Sometimes some of the best arguments for one proposal came from the states, the size of the states that you would expect would be different, right? So like the small states were making really good arguments in defense of like the interest of the big states. And some of the big states were making really good arguments for some of the interests of the small states. I mean, it's just kind of crazy that way. But write this down. You ready? We got to work together. We live in the United States of America. We got all kinds of different people, all kinds of different things going on. If we want this thing to work, we got to work together. Right? I remember my Uncle John, when he ran for the legislature, he put on his poster, "Let's pull together." And that was actually, that's like an agricultural type of a thing. You know, if you're pulling like a heavy cart or so forth, pull together. Very much from the Depression era that he grew up in, where a lot of Americans were hurting economically. What did they just like take out knives and stab each other for like, you know, whatever food is available? No. Mostly no, thank you very much. Mostly the older generation, they were like trying to help each other out, right? What kind of challenges do you guys face in your lifetimes? Will you be able to tell the old people, yeah, we're pretty cool, we're young, we don't have as much experience, but we pay attention to what's going on, and we are fully engaged, and we're going to make this country great. Because who gets to spend more of the next 20, 30, 40 years living in this country? The young people, yeah. So commit to it. Here's a little secret. It's not that much of a secret. Older generations, they do great things, but they don't get it quite right. There's always something that needs to be worked on. There's old challenges, and there's new challenges too. It's worth doing it. And one of the things that's interesting, write this down, a lot of Americans have come to the point of view that what you guys did in your mock convention and what happened way back when in the real constitutional convention was a pretty darn good thing. Came up with a pretty darn good national government. Not perfect, but you can change some things. Okay? And there is a way of changing things. In fact, it's in the Constitution. And when I teach you guys, those of you guys who are going to be here next year, you're going to hear this over and over and over again. If you want to change the Constitution, amend the Constitution, in fact, go ahead, write this down. This is the first time you're going to write it down. Amend the Constitution. To amend the Constitution, you can do that. Right? The Constitution that was created by you guys back in 1787 is different today. It has amendments. Well, how does an amendment take place? You ready? Here we go. You ready? I'm going to give you 3 numbers. They're all fractions. Does all of you not like that? Or half of you? Or like 2/3 of you not like that? Or 3/4 of you not like that? 3/4 of you doesn't like the fact that we're going to talk about fractions? Okay, well, at least we're talking about fractions and you don't seem to be too upset about it right at that moment. Here we go. If there's going to be a new part in the Constitution, it has to do this. You ready? First, it has to be approved by 2/3 of the House of Representatives and 2/3 of the Senate. Now, just to remind ourselves here, Blake, little states, they seem to have a better say in the Senate or the House. How many senators, you're Delaware, how many senators are you going to get in the new United States government, Congress? 2. Are you going to get as many representatives to the House as big old Virginia over there? No. So the small states actually, they do better in the Senate. That was where I gave you that example of like, if they want to take all of Idaho's water and send it to California by way of a big like tube or something, Idaho's 2 senators and other states' senators are going to go, no, no, no. Even if a lot of representatives from California are like, no, that's a great idea. Let the water go to where the people are. Okay? So let me just finish this part out and then I'll get you the question. So 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate. It's a pretty high fraction. It's not easy to do. In fact, you can write that down. It's not easy to get those 2/3. Okay, the second part is, or the last part is, ratification. What? Ratification. The final approval by, here's the fraction, 3/4 of the states. 3/4 of the states, if they ratify, boom, it's in the Constitution. In fact, I want you to understand how hard it is to get that. Anybody have any idea how many times the United States Constitution has been amended over the course of like its entire lifetime?
Is it 2?
No, more than that. Oh, it's more than that. 27. Were you going to say 27? Okay, all right, 27. Although, and we're going to talk about it today, there were 10 amendments that happened really fast. The first 10 amendments was like, whoa, we should have put that in the Constitution. My bad. Let's go ahead and put it in there right away. Anybody know what together the first 10 amendments, First Amendment, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Seventh Amendment, Eighth Amendment, Ninth Amendment, Tenth Amendment? Have you heard of any of those? Together, those are referred to as, do you think you know?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask.
No, I want to know. Does anybody know what those are called?
Bill of Rights.
The Bill of Rights. Write that down. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution are called the Bill of Rights. First Amendment, oh, that's huge. I got a right to speak. Yeah. Second Amendment, anybody have any idea what the Second Amendment is? The right to bear arms, right? I mean, it's like, how many of you guys have strong opinions about the Second Amendment, one way or another? Just a handful? It'll make some interesting, maybe a little bit more. So anyway, these are things that are going to be very, very important. Trust me, Next year, we'll spend a lot of time going into a lot of the details about various different amendments. In fact, one amendment, write this down, 13th Amendment, that happened soon after, actually Abraham Lincoln, our president, during and right at the very end of the Civil War, he liked the 13th Amendment. He also liked what ultimately would be the 14th and 15th. 13th Amendment, actually, when it was passed, it got rid of one of those silly compromises you guys did at the very, very end, when we were in a bit of a hurry, when the southern states and the northern states, the slave states and the not-so-slave states were like, should we stick together to fight off that big, powerful Britain that might want to come try and take us back? You compromised on how to measure a slave when it came to taxation and how many representatives you had. You guys remember what the fraction was that you guys came up with? 3/5, yeah, 60%. That's moot. It's gone now. I mean, people feel kind of weird. They're like, wow, we put that in the Constitution? Why, yes. In our country at that time, we had slavery. Wow, was it an issue then? Yeah. Is it going to become an even bigger issue? Yeah. Is it going to be resolved ultimately by the Civil War? Yeah. What amendment got rid of slavery finally in all parts of the country? I already gave you the number.
15th.
Not the 15th. 13th. The 13th, yeah. 13th gets rid of slavery. 15th says you get a right to vote regardless of your skin color.
So what was 14th?
14th is the Equal Protection Clause, and it basically tells states don't take away the equal protection of the law. Although, yeah, we'll get into that. It happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for the like 10 years or so after the Civil War, the United States military, the Union troops were deep in the South saying, don't mistreat African Americans. But then eventually, the political will to keep that going in the Deep South went away. In about 1876, beginning with the presidency of Rutherford B. Hayes, it was a compromise. We don't get to get into all the details of it now. We will get into it more next year. It was a compromise. And then when the Union troops weren't there to protect the rights of African Americans, their voting rights were taken away, and all kinds of different laws were put in there. Didn't work out so well for African Americans. Okay? One of the units we'll cover next year is the Civil Rights Movement. 1860s, mostly 1960s. Okay? And so there'll be a lot accomplished during the 1960s, in the 50s, and into the 70s. Martin Luther King Jr. and so forth. Okay? Trying to get interpretations, amendments to the Constitution, other laws, and so forth. You had a question?
Since when?
Since when what? Earlier. Yeah, I'm sorry. You had your hand up earlier. Do you still remember it?
No, it was probably in preemptive because I thought you would ask a question.
Oh, okay. Maybe I still will. Who knows?
Okay. Well, if you
Yeah.
have a question, then just point at me.
Okay. All right. But your answer has to be responsive to my question.
Of course.
Okay? Do you know the first 3 words of the United States Constitution?
You already asked me that.
Yeah, well, what's the answer?
We the people
Okay, what's the next one?
of the United States
Yeah, keep going.
of America.
No, it's not of America. Actually, somebody was doing that. Yeah, it's not of America. It's weird because there's like these little weird things and so forth in there. Keep going.
Oh, like, should I keep going?
Yeah. Can you actually, this is like an eye chart. Can you read that?
In order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense,
Promote.
promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our property.
Posterity.
Posterity. Maybe you should.
It's okay. No, I'm going to have everyone write it down and so forth in their notes. And then if you can memorize it, that's great. I'll give you another 5 points.
Do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States. Now they say of America.
Now they do.
They changed it.
They didn't change it. It's just different in 2 different parts.
Why?
I don't know. I didn't write it. I wasn't there.
Yes, you were. You're George Washington.
Well, I play George Washington, but that's only in classroom settings, okay? All right, so let's pick it apart. Write this down. You ready? You're going to get into, in fact, there's an entire unit next year dedicated to the United States Constitution, okay, and the United States government. Because, of course, the 10th graders at North Star take is called government. If you go to Eagle or Rocky or any of the other typical schools and so forth, they do that in the 12th grade. So sometimes when there's students that do government at North Star, and if they transfer, then they don't have to take government or econ when they go to another school. So they can knock that out, or at least that stays with them. Okay, so I'll be doing government with y'all that are here next year. And we spend a lot of time on the Constitution. We also spend a lot of time on civil rights, lots of really good stuff, interesting stuff. So let's unpack this for a moment. This is the preamble, and as I mentioned to you, you've already had one person come in, booyah, got 5 points. Can you do that too? Come in at lunch, after school, before the end of the school year to get that. Simply memorizing this, okay? Write this down. You ready? We, the people. Okay, so you're in the very first part of your Constitution, you're saying that this comes from the people of the United States. They could have said we, the states, but you're like, hey, you know, we're the people, we're United States people, and we're trying to do this better. Here are the goals of the Constitution that you've created. It's got 7 articles and all kinds of interesting things that we'll get to mostly next year. In order to form a more perfect union, you can write that phrase down. More perfect union. It was a pretty good union, the first one you guys came up with, to beat the British, to get your independence. It was pretty good for that. But it had some flaws, because you guys started fighting with each other. You started like putting tariffs on each other. And you started having like conflicts over territory. And you just started having difficulty like putting down, you know, riots and Shays Rebellion and so forth. So your goal here is we're going to have a better union, a more perfect union. Cool. And actually, let me just throw this out. Do we have a perfect union in our country today? No. Is it pretty darn good? If you look and compare by history to other places and so forth, our Constitution's been around a long time. There's a lot of good stuff going on there, and a lot of things, even though they can be continually worked on to improve our country, I'd have to say props to the USA and to the people who've lived in here over the various different years. Not too bad. And it's pretty darn good in some respects. Particularly some of the civil rights, free speech and so forth. You can have other countries in the world that sometimes have a really great economy, but you know, you get people that want to step up and go, well, I've got something to say. They get crushed. Like they were a chicken on Animal Farm or something like that. Okay? We got some pretty decent things going on here. Not perfect, but the goal was to make a more perfect union. Yes?
I don't think it's that good because one of my friends was in a union and his friend got transferred to another sector and then he got fired and it didn't protect
There's different kinds of unions. There's labor unions. There's unions of matrimony. There's the union of the 50 states in our country. So there's different kinds of unions. Okay, so that's a generic word. Although in this instance, I think we're talking about the union initially of 13 states and eventually of 50 and 6 territories. Establish justice. Do we like that? Establish justice. We like having justice. Justice is a good word. You feel fair. That's goodness. That's like fairness. Ensure domestic tranquility. What does tranquility sound like? Do you like tranquility in your house? Is tranquility noisy or is it kind of quiet? It's quiet, yeah. So this is basically trying to like keep fighting among the states and, you know, Shays Rebellion, things like that. Okay? Provide for the common defense. That's the Army, that's the Navy, that's, if we're going to get into another war with some big country like Britain, we want to actually be able to come out of there still standing. And we're going to test that. I think we may even get to the notes beginning to that as far as the next big war the United States is going to be involved in, the War of 1812. Promote the general welfare. It's kind of a generic term, general welfare. How is your welfare today? Are you feeling well? Are you feeling well? Do you need some time off? How is your welfare? Is it good? Okay, yeah, that's good. The general welfare is just sort of like a generic statement that people are doing well. They got jobs, they got families, they've got, you know, time off. You like to live in a country where that's taking place. I love this one. Secure the blessings of liberty. The blessings of liberty. Freedom. Freedom to make all kinds of various different choices, including choices within your country's democracy, your state's democracy. the liberty to speak out, the liberty to like do all kinds of various different things. That's a big one. That's one that I focus on a lot. It's one of the things that has pulled me from what I was doing before I got into teaching. The first high school course I ever taught, the courses that I was working on when I was doing my student teaching, is going to be the course you're going to be taking next year. Government, or government, if you want it pronounced correctly. And a lot of my focus in government is on liberty, freedom. And so you get this thing here, to ourselves and our posterity. That's probably the one, and sometimes students stumble over that because they'll call it like prosperity, because that's a good word. I'm prosperous. I'm doing well. But that's not the word. Posterity. Raise your hand if you can describe what does posterity mean. Children and grandchildren and so forth, yeah. What comes from me and my family to the next generation? Are you guys going to have posterity? Raise your hand if you're going to have posterity. Oh my gosh, this is, it's good. The human race is about to conclude. Wow. Wow. Raise your hand if you're like, no, I'm getting a puppy, that's it. Oh my gosh. And actually, this is fascinating because I've been reading, it's like the birth rate among Americans and other people is just like, you're like, I want to look after kids. They're going to turn out like my sister and brother, me. Anyway, I don't know. Raise your hands high if you're going to have some posterity. Maybe, possibly, maybe. Okay, all right. You're like, maybe. like, it's way too young to consider this. Give me a break, you know. Take your time. Anyway, so we want to have these kinds of things for us and for our kids and grandkids and so forth. And therefore, do ordain, I love this one. It's almost like religious, and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Okay, that's our goals.
I was just going to say that if you're talking about the posterity of this class, then you should look at the posterity of the leaders.
Yeah, trust me, what China does in the world and so forth, we're going to talk about that some more next year. Yeah. As in an ethnic minority that exists in China that aren't being very well treated by the Chinese Communist government. Yeah, I know about that. We're going to talk about that some more. Yeah, hoo-hoo, yeah. So, yeah, it happens. It's bad. But no, I'm glad. I mean, it's like, I've taught some of my students posterity. No, actually here at North Star, I remember there was one year I went to like a parent-teacher conference, and I was talking to one of the moms, and she was one of the first students that I had when I was teaching high school. Okay? Yeah, I know. It's pretty wild. Yeah. So, I mean, it happens. Hopefully you will get old someday, and you will meet the children of your classmates or other people who you have been around. Okay, so here we go. Write this down. You ready? Back to the notes. It took 4 months to come up with a Constitution, and those were hot months. Okay? And they finally did it. September 19, 1787. September 19, 1787, they opened the doors. You got the job done. You created a constitution. You did all the compromises necessary. You did it. You made your proposal. September 19, 1787. Next step, get it ratified. Okay? You wanted it private while you were having the discussions in your big group, but now you've made your discussions. You're putting it out to each of the 13 states going, okay, are you going to ratify this? Okay? How many states need to ratify for it to actually go into existence? 9. Write that down, 9. Okay? We covered this before. Raise your hand if you think you're so special, your state is so special that even if you're not one of the 9, there's no way the United States could be successful without you. Pennsylvania makes that claim. You're a big state. Okay? Elliot's like, yeah, okay, so hands up. Okay? Which state are you? North Carolina's like, yeah, man. Yeah. Well, did they start the United States of America without North Carolina? No, almost. But no, I think North Carolina was number 12. Who was last? Rhode Island was. I mentioned that before. You write these things down. I'm going to put the chart up and so forth, but if you write it down right now, did the United States of America get started without Rhode Island? Yes, we did. We did, yeah, we did. And then Rhoda's like, wait for me! You know, it's kind of like you chase. Have you ever chased after your mom or dad as they were driving out of the thing? I mean, it's so embarrassing, and they're looking through the rearview mirror going, should we slow down? Anyway. They're like, Which was the first state that was like, no, we're going to be on there, we're going to be there, we're going to be there? Thank you, Delaware. Virginia? You guys were like, I want to say 10th, and I want to say New York. Double check because I got the chart. I would say New York was about 11th. I think our country would have a hard time moving forward without Virginia and New York, maybe North Carolina. Of course, we would have gotten nowhere without Rhode Island. Who can go anywhere without Rhode Island? I mean, give me a break. All right, now, get this, write this down. There's going to be big debates going on in all 13 states. Big debates. Now, some of them are going to look and go, okay, that's good, let's do this. Right? Rhode Island, for example, Delaware, Pennsylvania was the second state to ratify the Constitution that fall. I mean, the folks in Pennsylvania, they were already pretty well convinced that this is a good idea, let's do this. Some of the tougher debates are going to be, Virginia, North Carolina, New York, and Rhode Island. It's a very close debate there. Because there's people, write this down, one of the big concerns is we just beat a big national government, Britain. Now we're going to create a big national government, the United States of America. How many of you guys know people that feel like the United States government has too much power? There you go. I mean, this is an issue that was talked about back then, and it's still an issue now. How many of you guys are like, no, the United States government needs more power to deal with all those local and state issues and so forth? I mean, these are the kinds of issues that are going to be discussed throughout the history of the United States of America. But to be clear, it was a stronger national government. And who is going to take the lead role in favor of ratification? We will call them, you ready? The Federalists. And these are people who were at the Constitutional Convention. In fact, if you look at the name right here, James Madison, right here in the middle, write down James Madison. I want you to know that. And they talked about that in the film. He was the one I think was not real tall. Who cares? Do we care? Do we really care how tall you are? Do we care more now or then? Maybe more now with television and all that kind of stuff and so forth. But he was 5'1", but that guy was smart. James Madison. I think he also went to William Mary. Anyway, whatever. James Madison was from Virginia. They call him, write it down, the father of the Constitution. In the Constitutional Convention, he took notes, and he made proposals, and he made arguments. And afterwards, he's going to write down arguments in what are called the Federalist Papers. And these are arguments in favor of the Constitution. So these are the written arguments that people are going to read. Mostly New Yorkers. It comes out mostly when the debate is going on in New York. But others are going to have an opportunity to look at them. I'm sure people, in Virginia, North Carolina, and then throughout history, people will look and go, so what is good about this Constitution? James Madison is going to play a critical role there. Not too far behind, and in fact, in some people's estimation, maybe an even bigger contributor to those Federalist Papers, which, by the way, were anonymous at the time, but we know who wrote them now. Alexander Hamilton from New York. He really wanted the Constitution to be ratified, and he wanted the United States to have a bigger, stronger country. And so he played a critical role in writing down arguments in favor of ratifying the Constitution. And let's not leave out John Jay. He wrote some of them. And we're talking about, I want to say there was, how many was there altogether? I want to say close to 100 different articles in favor of the Constitution, dealing with different things. So for example, I'm going to give you one. You ready? This is one of James Madison's Federalist Papers, number 10. Write this down. There's literally people who spend like a whole semester going through all the different arguments and all the different Federalist Papers. I'm going to deal with number 10. Okay? You ready? Federalist Paper number 10. This is James Madison. James Madison was hearing people arguing, oh my gosh, there's going to be less freedom under the United States of America compared to if you're just in a state. You understand that? The concern is if you're part of a bigger group, you're going to have less freedom and opportunity than if you're part of a smaller group. James Madison said, that's not true. Here's the argument he made. Maybe you'll buy it. He basically said, look, if you're part, here are you, here's some of you guys, you're part of a state, and this is a representation of the people in the state, okay? When political issues come into debate, who's usually going to win, pink or green? Green, over and over and over again. You're in this fixed minority, so said James Madison, that you never seem to kind of get your way. How many of you guys have ever felt that like as part of, I don't know, a household? You're always on the losing group. You always get outvoted, all right, hands down. James Madison would say, one way to give you a better chance is to expand the number of people who are in your group. So if you expand, you're going to get some more of these. You're going to get some more of these. Oh, and you might actually get some of these, too. Got that? Now, have your opportunities as a pink to win, have they improved? Yes, and here's what Madison says. You're not going to necessarily get it on your own. Let me see, how many did I get there? 7? Is 7 enough to get a winning majority in a democracy? No, but you could, here's the thing, form coalitions. So maybe on one issue, pink and green come together to form a coalition and win. Or maybe on another issue, pink and blue come together to win. Although sometimes blue and green form a coalition to win. Madison's trying to say that in a big country with lots of different diverse interests, it'll be ever shifting, and no one group is going to constantly be in the minority. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, that's his argument for Federalist number 10. Okay? And you do see various different shiftings and so forth and so on. So it isn't automatic. Actually, I'm kind of curious. How many of you guys would feel more comfortable living in a big city someday with lots of different people and so forth? How many guys would feel more comfortable living in a smaller community with maybe a smaller... Now, if you live in a smaller community, do you expect that your view and your kind of way of doing life is going to be very different from the other people or fairly similar? Yeah. Okay? If you're in a big city and so forth, and yours is sort of like a little bit different and so forth, is it going to be okay? Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Anyway, interesting arguments that are presented by James Madison in favor of the Constitution and ratifying it. Okay? Of course, which of these has ended up becoming the most famous in recent history? Hamilton. Who's this right here? That's Hamilton. It's not the real Hamilton. He is dead. He's been dead a long time. Who is this man right here? Tessa should be here because she actually did her thing on it. Who? Lin-Manuel Miranda. Is he good? Is he talented? Yeah. How many of you guys have seen Hamilton? Anyway, yeah, he wrote the whole thing and so forth. I'm going to play... This is Hamilton. This is where they have, and I was actually glad to find this one. This was during, not the current president, or the previous president, but the previous president, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and other top members of the cast came and did a performance without costume and lights and everything and so forth. The introductory piece as far as who he was. Alexander Hamilton, you write this down. Okay? He is going to be very, very important. He's going to get his way. He's going to get the Constitution. We saw earlier, did he help George Washington at the Battle of Yorktown? No. Yeah, he was his top, advisor at the Battle of Yorktown. Is he going to be on George Washington's top group, his cabinet, to begin this country? Secretary of the Treasury. Is he ever going to be elected president? No. Vice president? No. Live a long life? Why not? Who? Aaron Burr? He did. 1804. Aaron Burr? What the heck, Aaron Burr? Who the heck is Aaron Burr? Aaron Burr was a buddy, ultimately teamed up with Thomas Jefferson. They were supposed to be like president, vice president, and kick John Adams out of the presidency, and they did. I mean, Thomas Jefferson went on to be president. Burr went on to be vice president, although Burr tried to pull a fast one and get himself to become president. And Alexander Hamilton wasn't really keen on either one of those, but he's like, I'll go with Jefferson because at least I can trust him even if I disagree with him. Burr, you're a scoundrel. Burr didn't like that, challenged him to a duel in New Jersey. They pointed guns at each other. Actually, I want to say Burr pointed a gun at Hamilton. Hamilton, I think, pointed off to the sky to say, I'm a man. I can stand up to the threat of a duel, but I don't need to kill you to prove my worth. But Burr shot him. And he was dead. Okay? So, yeah, let's go ahead and play this thing. I like this particular one because you actually get the different cast members in this introductory piece. So it's 5 minutes, so we'll play this and then we'll continue on. Oh, give me a break. God. What? It's okay. If you see me doing that, feel free to jump up and go, wait right there, Mr. Hanson. That's Aaron Burr. Jefferson. Just you wait. His wife. Washington. So, if you haven't had a chance to see that, I'd highly recommend it. Make friends with somebody who's got Disney Plus. I think, is it still on Disney Plus? Is it? Okay, yeah. That was cool. They came out, it was like a present to all the people who were like stuck with COVID. They made it available, to at-home viewers, okay? He got his way, but there were people, write this down, the Anti-Federalists. What a stupid name. The people who don't like the Constitution are called the Anti-Federalists. They should have come up with a really cool name like, Freedom and Apple Pie Party or something. I don't know. They're going to be referred to historically as Anti-Federalists, and they've got some good arguments. Anti-Federalists are going to oppose the ratification of the Constitution. They're going to say, let's keep the power in the 13 states. Okay, and you guys are making some of the arguments, which is good, in the Constitutional Convention. In fact, actually, you made some of those arguments in the Declaration of Independence, Second Continental Congress. We're okay as states. We can do this. I mean, good grief, Europe has got so many different countries, right? It's not like they have to form some big European Union. Oh, they did. They formed a big European Union to have like a common currency, but they still squabble. I mean, do our states still squabble with each other? Do you squabble at times with your siblings? Are you still okay being under the same roof? You're like, oh, eventually I want to move up and like be in my own. How many of you guys someday, when you're like doing well and independent, are going to invite the rest of your siblings to come live in the house with you? How many of you guys are going to invite them to come visit you? Oh my gosh. Well, that's pretty harsh. Yeah. Anyway, so, and no, we're not going to have another convention and have you guys vote out. And I don't even want to bring up broach the subject of which state you would vote out. I mean, good grief. I mean, raise your hand if you're aware if your state actually voted at one point in time in history, in the United States history, to leave. Don't act like you don't know. What do you mean? When did you vote to leave? During the Civil War? Did Virginia vote to leave during the Civil War?
Not during the Civil War.
Well, causing the Civil War. North Carolina, did you vote to leave? Yeah, probably, yeah. South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, Maryland. You're like, I don't know. It was interesting. They're a slave state, but they stayed. Delaware? You stayed. You're not a Confederate state. The Confederate states are going to be Virginia on, and then they'll be adding on some other ones and so forth. Tennessee and Alabama and Mississippi and Florida and Texas and Arkansas and Louisiana. Okay, but anyway. But we're together now, so we can pull this off, right? Question?
Yeah, about slave state thing. Didn't Missouri have a little skirmish?
Oh my gosh, this is one of the things that's like, yeah, it was great spending this time with you this year and so forth, but we haven't had near as much time. Should we stick together this summer? No, okay, never mind. All right, but one of the last unit that I wanted to get to and so forth was the details leading up to the Civil War and the aftermath. And one of the things that was interesting, there were some slave states. Delaware, Maryland, Missouri, Kentucky, that stayed in the Union.
Well, Missouri didn't, they stopped being slaves.
Oh, all of them afterwards. What amendment to the United States Constitution got rid of slavery once and for all? 13th Amendment, okay? Okay, 13th Amendment. All right, so some folks are saying this is not good enough. The Constitution's not good enough. Patrick Henry, write his name down, from Virginia. I mean, he was the guy that was totally in favor of independence from Britain. He was the one who made the stirring speech in Virginia for independence, saying, "Give me liberty," or "Give me a cheeseburger." "Give me death," he said. Well, to the Constitution, he does not think the Constitution is cool. In fact, when the Constitutional Convention came, he's like, I'm not going to show up there. And then when they closed the door, he's like, I smell a rat. I don't know what you guys are up to. And in Virginia, he argued against the Constitution. And here was one really good argument he made. Write this down. There's no Bill of Rights. Write it down. There is no Bill of Rights. You're like, what the heck is a Bill of Rights? A Bill of Rights is a piece of paper that guarantees the rights of individuals against the power of the government. The right of an individual to speak. The right of an individual to not be thrown in jail without a charge. The right of an individual to have an attorney facing charges to bring witnesses, to have the right to bear arms. A whole bunch of rights. Okay? Here's the deal. You ready? Write this down. When Britain was in charge, there was an English Bill of Rights that applied to everybody. All the colonies and all the people in Britain, they had an English Bill of Rights. Okay, so that's cool. Write this down as well. You ready? Every state in their own constitution had a Bill of Rights. So if you were in Virginia, what protected you against the tyranny and the overbearing Virginia government? The Virginia Bill of Rights. So that's what these guys are saying. Some of the Anti-Federalists are saying, hey, you're creating this big, new, powerful United States government. You should put a Bill of Rights in there. Otherwise, we're not going to ratify it. You know what James Madison and Hamilton and the other Federalists, the people in favor of the Constitution, said? Maybe we should have. Maybe we should have. I mean, they first tried to argue, oh, well, it's just going to be the United States government. You'll be protected in your state, by your state Bill of Rights. Your state Bill of Rights tells you you're protected against your state government. But what's going to protect you against the overbearing authority of the national, U.S. government? Nothing. You know what they actually did? Write this down. This is very important. Okay? And this cuts against some advice I'm about to give you. If you're ever sitting down and like writing up an important contract for a house or employment or something, and you're like, you know, I want this in the contract, and then the other person says, oh, you don't need it in writing. We'll do that later. Are you going to sign that document? What do you want in that document? You want the guarantee. You want it in writing. So here's the weird thing. Eventually, Madison and Hamilton and the other Federalists said, ooh, darn it, maybe we should have put a Bill of Rights. Write this down. They ultimately favored a Bill of Rights. They're like, but we'll do it. If you ratify the Constitution and you put it into effect, we'll amend the Constitution. How about that? We'll amend it. We'll put in a Bill of Rights. Did Madison keep his word? Did the people in support of the Constitution keep their word? Were there amendments? How many amendments when the Bill of Rights? 10. How quickly were they added to the Constitution? Within the scope of about a year or two. It was very fast. So they actually kept their word. I would generally say get it in writing ahead of time. I still think that's very good advice. But it happened. Okay? Those first 10 amendments happened very quickly. The other amendments are going to be much slower. They're going to be hard to come by. Okay? Now, this map shows you, take a close look at this map. It's color-coded. I don't know if you can read this here. I like how they actually found out the majority of the people in those particular regions, and you're not just seeing the whole state, you're seeing particular parts within the state. If it's green, they liked it. So you look over here, New Jersey, Delaware, they like it. There's a lot of people that are in favor of the ratification. Where you have majority against ratification, those are the purple areas. You can see why North Carolina came in a little bit slower there. Virginia was a little bit slower. New York, Rhode Island. I mean, I don't even see too much green in there altogether. I think they were like, hey, the bus is leaving. Maybe we should jump on and see what happens. Okay? So I don't think you can actually see the dates there very well, which is why I'm going to go ahead and move to this one. I want you to write these down. Okay? This is the order of the ratification to the Constitution. And if you know the postal codes, you know what states we're talking about. Who's DE? Delaware, very good. And they're the first ones. In their little constitutional convention that they have in Delaware, they love it. It's a 30-0 vote. And remember, the Constitutional Convention was over, yeah, go ahead, take a picture. It might be the quickest way to do this. The Constitutional Convention was over, what did we say, September 1787. So within a few months, Delaware is already on board. Okay? 30-0. Pennsylvania, they got their troops together and they had their discussions to debate. Literally 2-1. December 1787. New Jersey, 38-0. So we got Delaware, New Jersey, Georgia. Boom. Number 4, 26-0. Connecticut, obviously they let more people participate in that convention, and Connecticut went for it. They're the 5th state. They actually came up with a series some time ago of the state quarters. I don't know if you guys are into collecting quarters or anything like that. One of the first state collectible quarter things, they did it in the order of admission to the Union. So in a sense, these guys all came in together, but who likes to call themselves the first state? Delaware. Do the other states refer to themselves as the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th or the 6th state? Of course not. That's silly. You know, which is the first colony? Virginia, yeah. Which is the second colony? Massachusetts, yeah, Massachusetts. The Pilgrims, okay? So then we got Maryland, okay, South Carolina, and look here, number 9, look at it. New Hampshire, way to go, New Hampshire. Boom. Number 9. So let's get going, country. Let's do this. Remember, the rule was if 9 states have ratified, let's go. So is the country really going to get going? Like just, or is there still some other states that are very important? Number 10. Virginia comes in June 25th, 1788. So that following year, close vote, 89-79. And then New York, another close vote in July of that year, 30-27. Okay? I love that. The next year, look at that, North Carolina. Let me check on this one. Yeah, sorry, North Carolina. George Washington was already elected and sworn in as President of the United States by the time North Carolina decided that they wanted to be part of the United States of America. They were still debating, and what did they decide to do? Yeah, they decided to join. And then Rhode Island, there it is. The last of the 13 original states, yeah, May of 1790. Whew, they all went in, okay? And Rhode Island was like, hey, might as well join them, okay? So, everyone got those? Okay, I'll leave it there. You're like, oh, writing them all busily down. Somebody goes, I don't need to write it down. I got a picture of it. Okay? Okay. Oh, you got all the. You don't have to write the number. I'm not going to test you on this part here, but I could have a question is like, which is the first state? Which is the last state? Was Virginia part of the original 9? Was New York? Virginia and New York were not. And North Carolina was the number 12. Okay? Yeah, basically, the idea is we're going to have a real democracy protecting against crazy interests within the country, and together maybe we can stand up and be strong in case the British decide to be a danger to us all. Okay? I'm going to go ahead. Wait, which one? One more. How many more? Are you writing down all the numbers? You were just writing down everything. You're being very thorough. Okay? You guys all ready to go? Yep. Yep. All right. Okay, so let's hear from the remainder part of this. And I'll actually put the rest of this on for the video. So next time what we're going to do is we're going to get into the War of 1812 and see if the United States is going to be okay in the War of 1812. Who's going to be president in the War of 1812? Andrew Jackson. He's going to be involved in it, but who's going to be the president during the War of 1812? Can you see? The numbers are a little small there. This president is president from 1809 to 1817. It's James Madison, yeah. James Madison is going to be the president during the War of 1812, and we're going to get into all of the details associated with the War of 1812. It's going to be awesome. Are we going to win? Well, we will survive.
On behind the closed doors, 2 of the 3 delegates from New York State have gone home in protest. After almost 4 months of exhausting debate, the delegates emerged with a plan to completely scrap the Articles of Confederation. They have written a blueprint for a new nation.
Well done. This is what you did.
The convention created a constitution of an entirely new
very, very good federation because it was a national government in its own right, with its own president, its own Senate and House of Representatives, its own court system that would reach right down to individuals, have coercive power over individuals in a way that the Confederation never dreamed of.
The founding fathers have addressed the issue of power in an entirely new way. They have put forward the idea that only in a large democracy with an extensive system of checks and balances can you protect the rights of
There we
the
go.
minority
That was the key point.
from potential tyranny by the majority.
Federalist number 10.
It was a revolution in democratic thought.
Prior to that, philosophers have said, if, this is a huge if democracy is possible anywhere at all, it has to be in a small face-to-face society. Heracles, Athens, Greece, Geneva, something of the sort. Now, they said Madison, no, the secret is an extensive republic. An extensive republic that will allow you to have a saving multiplicity of factions.
Like I had on the board.
Faction used to be considered the great enemy of democracy. Madison said, no, wrong, completely wrong. Faction will be the savior of democracy. Because by having more competing factions, more diversity in the modern language, you will have, again, you will prevent the emergence of a stable, potentially oppressive majority.
The biggest danger to our rights today
Madison.
is not from governments acting against the will of the majority, but from government which has become the mere instrument of this majority. Think about it. That's where the abuse of power comes from. Not the tyranny of the king, but the tyranny of the majority.
Or the cat.
Wrong will be done as much by an all-powerful people as by an all-powerful prince.
The text of the Constitution is sent to the printers. It is only a proposal. It will not become the law of the land unless it is accepted and approved by the country as a whole. September 19th, 1787. The Constitution is made public. We, the people of the United States,
You can do
in order
this.
to form a more perfect union,
Establish justice. Ensure domestic tranquility. Provide for the common defense. Promote the general welfare. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. To ordain and establish this Constitution. Shh! Don't put the things away yet. Shh!
For the majority of the country, expecting only a revision of the Articles of Confederation,
Haha.
it is a real shock.
They asked me how I could be against the new Constitution when our friend General Washington will be the first president under it. Well, it's fine, I say, but how about when General Washington
Ooh, General Sloshington.
becomes the second president?
Who was our second president?
It's created by the new Constitution. 6 years.
John Adams,
And
but
they can be reelected
some people call him Swashington.
It's really the 4th of July. That being his new
Federal City. What are we going to call that federal city? Washington, District of Columbia.
man lived in the street and you that kind of senators. Far away from any knowledge of how ordinary people live.
These men had just come out of a war. They just come out of a war. They had risked their lives to fight for no taxation without representation and the power of local government, and all men are created equal. And within
20 minutes are left, and I want you guys to watch the last 20 minutes at home, and also get ready for the quiz. That's going to be on Wednesday when you guys come back. Okay? All right. Wipe her down and have an awesome weekend. Au revoir. Oh, you have some papers for me? Should I do something about those papers? Yes, and I will.